I spent 42 years building my life one exhausting paycheck at a time, and by the age of 68, I believed I had finally earned peace. I owned a modest farmhouse outside the city, had a retirement account worth just over $400,000, and lived carefully after my wife Eleanor passed away 3 years earlier. My son Daniel was 34, married to a woman named Vanessa, and worked inconsistently in luxury car sales. He always talked big, always chased shortcuts, and always acted like appearances mattered more than reality. Still, he was my son, and like most fathers, I kept forgiving things I should have confronted years earlier. After Eleanor died, Daniel suddenly became attentive. He called more often, visited on weekends, brought groceries I never asked for, and insisted he wanted to help me adjust. I thought grief had matured him. I ignored the warning signs because I wanted to believe my family still meant something. One afternoon in early June, Daniel came over carrying coffee and sat at my kitchen table with fake concern painted across his face. He told me I was becoming forgetful and said he worried about my finances because scammers targeted elderly people. He mentioned stories about retirees losing everything online. Then Vanessa joined the conversation and suggested adding Daniel's name to my banking access, for emergencies only. I refused immediately. I told them I had managed my own finances longer than they had been alive. Daniel laughed it off and said I was stubborn like Mom. But over the following weeks, he kept bringing it up casually, carefully, patiently, like a salesman softening a customer before the real pitch. He helped me set up online banking alerts, claiming he wanted me protected. Then one day while I struggled resetting a password, I allowed him temporary access to help configure the account on my laptop. That mistake would cost him far more than he imagined. 3 months later, I woke at 6 in the morning to feed the chickens and noticed 3 missed fraud alerts on my phone. At first I assumed it was spam. Then I opened my banking application and felt the blood drain from my face. $175,000 had been withdrawn through multiple international wire transfers during the night. My hand started shaking so violently I nearly dropped the phone. I called the bank instantly. The representative confirmed the transfers had been authorized using my credentials and secondary verification codes. The money had already moved through overseas processing accounts. Then she asked a question that changed everything. "Sir, did you recently authorize access from a device in the Maldives?" Maldives. I stared at the wall in silence. Daniel and Vanessa had spent months talking online about luxury island resorts they could never afford. My stomach twisted. I called Daniel immediately. Straight to voicemail. I called Vanessa. Same result. Then I opened social media and there it was. Vanessa had posted a photo 30 minutes earlier. Crystal blue water. Private infinity pool. Champagne glasses. Caption: finally living the life we deserve. Daniel stood beside her wearing sunglasses I once paid for during one of his hard times. At that exact moment, I realized my son had not merely stolen from me. He believed I was too weak, too old, and too broken to fight back. Most people think betrayal feels explosive. It does not. Real betrayal feels cold. Precise. Like discovering the floor beneath your feet vanished hours ago, and you simply had not noticed yet. I drove directly to the bank. The branch manager knew me personally, because I had banked there for over 20 years. After reviewing the transfers, she quietly admitted something disturbing. The access came from a verified device previously used for months on my account. Daniel had prepared this carefully. He had slowly established trust with the system before draining the funds. The manager said recovery would be difficult unless criminal fraud could be proven quickly. She also advised me to file a police report immediately. While sitting in that office, staring at pages filled with transaction codes, something inside me hardened. Grief disappeared. Shock disappeared. What remained was clarity. Daniel thought he had outsmarted an old man. What he forgot was that I spent 30 years running contract negotiations for an industrial supply company. I had watched grown executives destroy themselves through greed. I knew exactly how arrogant people behaved after believing they had won. They became careless, predictable, loud. I filed the police report that same afternoon, but left out one detail intentionally. I did not mention Daniel by name yet. Instead, I returned home and began gathering evidence quietly. I checked my email records, device access logs, phone backups, and document folders. By midnight, I discovered something extraordinary. Daniel had made one catastrophic mistake. Months earlier, when helping configure my online banking, he accidentally synced account notifications to an old tablet he forgot existed in my house. Every login confirmation, transfer receipt, and IP verification remained stored there, including screenshots of resort reservations under his own name, including confirmation emails showing Vanessa bragging about finally escaping broke people forever, including a message from Daniel saying, "Dad will never recover enough mentally to fight this." I sat in silence reading those words repeatedly. Not because they hurt me anymore. Because they told me exactly who my son had become. The next morning Daniel finally returned my call. His voice sounded relaxed, almost amused. He claimed he and Vanessa had taken a last-minute promotional vacation. Then he pretended concern when I mentioned missing money. He actually said, "Dad, maybe someone scammed you online. This is why I told you to let me manage things." I nearly admired the confidence. Nearly. Instead, I played weak. Confused. Frightened. I told him I was overwhelmed and unsure what to do. He immediately volunteered to help handle the situation when he returned from vacation in 10 days. 10 days. He thought he had already won. What Daniel did not know was that while he lounged beside turquoise water drinking imported cocktails, I had already contacted an attorney named Richard Holloway, a former federal financial crimes prosecutor I once worked with decades earlier. Richard reviewed everything carefully for 3 hours before leaning back in his chair and saying the words I had hoped to hear. "Your son committed interstate wire fraud, identity misuse, and elder financial exploitation. If we move correctly, he is finished." Then Richard explained something even more important. Because Daniel used authenticated access tied to my credentials, the bank initially viewed the transfers as authorized. However, evidence proving manipulation, deception, and concealed intent could reverse that classification. Especially because Daniel clearly targeted an elderly parent. Richard advised me not to confront him yet. Instead, he wanted Daniel comfortable. Spending. Posting publicly. Making evidence impossible to deny later. So for the next several days, I watched silently while my son destroyed himself online. Vanessa uploaded videos from luxury spas, yacht dinners, helicopter tours, and beachfront villas costing thousands per night. Daniel rented exotic cars and posted captions about escaping average life. Meanwhile, friends from church called me asking whether Daniel had inherited money after Eleanor died. Humiliation spread quietly through town. People assumed I funded the lifestyle willingly. But behind the scenes, Richard and a forensic accountant were building a timeline detailed enough to bury them permanently. By the 7th day, we traced nearly every dollar. Resort payments. International transfers. Jewelry purchases. Cryptocurrency conversions. Daniel thought moving money quickly made him clever. In reality, every transaction created another digital fingerprint. Then came the final surprise. Richard discovered Daniel had already started paperwork attempting to refinance my farmhouse using forged authorization.